Inexplicably, the girl wakes up to the sound of gentle waves, hinting that the place we're about to see is somewhere near the sea. She's a fair-skinned girl with black hair, wearing a ustar. One of her sleeves is stained with blood, and the other is folded under her since she's sitting on it, almost lying down, slowly waking up. She realizes she's on some kind of curved concrete surface, which gives her a sudden fright. She has no idea why she's there. The scare makes her slip slightly, but luckily she manages to hold on with her hands. That's when we clearly see the place is a massive ditch, giving us our first impression of the surface. It's something oddly constructed, probably for water drainage, made of concrete with a steep curve, exactly where the girl had been lying. When she looks around and sees this curve for the first time, you can't help but think, just waking up there would be terrifying enough. You can also notice the horizon, showing more of these kinds of structures. It's clear these concrete curves were built for a purpose. And our friend, still trying to understand what's happening, of course overwhelmed with panic, starts breathing heavily and begins to cry. But then something, actually, a sound, draws her attention along the curve. A sort of siren or soft tone, revealing she might not be alone there. Or at least, that's how it seems. The sound echoes from the ditch, increasing her fear, especially because she's so high up. At that moment, she's more afraid than confused. And honestly, she just wants to understand what exactly this curved structure is. Her body to free her foot. And that's when the second scare happened. Even though it was just a minor slip, it created a huge wave of tension. This whole concept reminds me of certain films that explore mystery and survival under pressure. Aaron Ralston, an adventurous mountaineer who set out to explore a remote canyon in Utah by himself. Despite his experience, he ended up trapped in a narrow crevice when a 300-kilo boulder fell and pinned his arm. He remained stuck in that narrow gap for hours, eventually for 5 full in the end, to escape. He made the agonizing decision to amputate his own arm to free himself. Despite it all, thanks to his experience, he managed to survive and was eventually rescued. Another film that comes to mind is The Platform, a 2019 Netflix original. Though the protagonist isn't alone, he finds himself trapped in a vertical prison system based on self-management. But it's not really about the food or the interaction with the other prisoners. It's about how the platform and the cells are built in such an unexplainable way. Especially the concrete platform that rises and falls, leaving behind the haunting question of what that place truly is. It's the same kind of mystery this short film presents. And even worse, how is she supposed to survive on top of this surface? After that first slip, she had to use every ounce of strength to keep herself from sliding off. And in doing so, she scraped her hands so badly that they began to bleed heavily. But she knew that with her hands slick with blood, she'd only slip more easily. So, she started doing something incredibly painful, blowing on one hand at a time, both completely wounded. Anyone who's ever done that knows just how sharp that pain can be. Still, she had to clean off the blood. It's one of the most agonizing moments in the short film. Watching her suffer just to dry her hands, pushing herself to the limit just to climb a few more centimeters without slipping. And during this part, there's a detail that reveals something important. A bruise on her head. It looks like she took a blow to the head, which may explain why she was unconscious. Maybe even why she was thrown there in the first place. The blood on her shoe adds to this suspicion, suggesting she was attacked somehow. At least, that's one possible explanation for why she ended up there. and from what we see, she spends hours trying to climb just a few centimeters. Her physical and mental exhaustion has clearly hit its breaking point. While wiping the blood from her hands on her own shirt, she looked ahead at the curve in front of her and realized she wasn't the only one who had been there. Others had gone through the same thing, trying to climb, hurting their hands. But unfortunately, they had slipped to their deaths. This might be the most intense part of the short film, because we hear the sounds of people falling from the deadly curve, but we never see who they are. It's a detail that would be amazing to explore further in a potential full-length version of this dark and gripping mystery. Well, before the final outcome, I tried to think of a few possible solutions for her escape, or at least ways she could try to get off that concrete surface. Right at the start, it shows she's actually very close to the edge. But since she's positioned right in the middle of the platform, and we can clearly see how easily her shoes slip, one possible idea would be to take off her sneakers and go barefoot. That would give her more grip on the smooth concrete surface. Far better than the slippery all-star shoes she's wearing. Of course, that would require a lot of care, done slowly and patiently, but maybe it would help her manage to stand. Another idea. She could remove her shirt. I know what you're thinking. If she could barely move, how could she take her shirt off? But here's the thing. It's a zip-up hoodie. So she could slowly unzip it and try removing it one sleeve at a time. Again, very carefully, to avoid slipping. And that shirt could have been a big help. Not just for drying her bloody hands, but for wiping down the concrete surface where it was slippery with blood. That would have helped her grip better too. Of course, all of this had to be done under constant pressure. Not just physical, but psychological. But fate, and maybe even St. Peter, seemed to have turned their backs on her, because that's when she noticed the first drops falling from the sky. Rain had started to fall, making our character even more heartbroken. And the saddest part? She had actually gotten into a better position than where she started. Maybe staying still and waiting for the rain to pass would have been the safest choice. But that's not what happened. Bit by bit, she began to slide again, and panic started to grow. But then she remembered something. She was wearing a chain. It was a bit long, and now she wrapped it around her hands, using it as a last resort to pull herself up. But sadly, the short film ends there, with her simply trying to climb, the rain pouring down, and the chain wrapped tightly around her hands. It leaves us with a massive question hanging in the air. Did she manage to hold on? I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Peace out.